teases us mentally as well as makes us think about all the different possibilities that exist when one is as creative and as original as Arshiya, Dr. Arshiya Sethi, who I knew as Arshiya Bawa when she was still in school. And then we met years later when she came to London to talk about Navarasa, or the 9 different sentiments as they're described in the Natya Shastra of Bharata. And I went there expecting a talk on the emotional artistic choices that artists make. But boy, was I dumbfounded. It connected the rasa theory to different events and happenings. Of course, the nature of that particular talk was that it was limited to that session. But in having the opportunity to catch up with Arshiya again after a gap, catch up properly. I mean, we've seen each other and smiled at each other, obviously, but catching up again in prep for this session had me completely wonderstruck, awestruck, as she started to list the things she'd done. I mean, a number of us have impressive CVs, but with Arshiya, everything had been a starting point because of something that she felt deeply about. And it wasn't happening anywhere else. And then she was able to influence people or influence events and make things happen. So in that sense, we're very lucky to have her with us today to share some of that and hopefully stimulate us in different ways. With Arshiya, the 3 huge things that she has been about has been, they coined this word, artivist, which explains, it's like you have a librarian who may be a Labrador and a Pomeranian. You have the artivist who's an artist and an activist. And in one of Arshiya's book titles, I saw the term Paviour, P-A-V-I-O-U-R. So she'll open up on this again. But that again, the word was so evocative, it made it very clear what she was saying about this particular artist. So in the 3 things that I wanted Arshiya to talk to us about today, one was her journey into the Fulbright scholarship, not once but twice, and how that influenced what she was doing or what the outcome of that was. The other, of course, is the work that she has done. And in that context, this is to do with the Me Too movement, to put it in a nutshell. But what Arshiya has done is given a slant to it, which brings in several aspects: the legal, the policy aspect, the things that are still a field which is needing to consolidate in India, whereas other cultures, other places might have thought about it in different ways, and there may be several that haven't reached that threshold at all. And then the third aspect was that of the different foundations she is associated with. So there is the CRI Foundation. Is it CRI, Arshiya?
Yes, CRI.
Okay.
Exactly, you pronounced
Where
it
she's a
correctly.
managing trustee. There is Unmute, which is an open forum for people to come up with their issues. And the other one was South Asian Dance
Intersections.
Interface, yes? No?
Intersections.
Intersection, yes. And you said that you particularly like the title of that because SADI is a Punjabi word which,
Yes, it's a Punjabi word called sadi. And since South Asian Dance Intersections, which is an online journal that uh, brings forth the voice from South Asia, so I thought that, sadi awaz, our voice, and in sadi kind of a thing. So I love that.
so which one would you like to start with, Arshia? Which
I think
aspect
it
of
might be a
these?
little easy to go chronologically. So let's start with the first question you asked, which is still sort of connected with the academic um flow from which I come. And the reason I'm here today is because of LSR.
Well,
So
you
I'd
said the
like to
seed
thank
was sown in LSR. What did you do in LSR?
absolutely. So first, I'd like to thank Snima and the other members of ELSA for thinking that I am worth framing in this Zoom conversation. Thank you very much. And when I see the names here, I see some old friends, Pushkala, you being one of them. By the way, I must tell you that I used to be completely in awe of Pushkala because I was this young person interested in dance, and Pushkala is this master who was crossing continents and I don't know if you, yeah, I remember that talk that you told me about. Yeah, it has some very interesting memories also. Anyway, it was to come up later again in my work because at some point of time, I enrolled thrice for a PhD, by the way, and one of them was to do it on on the Rasa theory, but it didn't happen like that. That's because I think things choose you, or more importantly, I realize now that I have reached crossed 60, I see my life and I can see the patterns. I try not to go against the big flow of life because that really is quite powerful. I sort of have made my peace with I will go whichever way the flow goes. But what I do contest, and I do it like incessantly, is the little whirlpools that I find when I reach a particular place. So my life in LSR was actually the most dramatic and change making thing that happened. Uh, it opened my eyes to not only a big city, my father was in the government, very prone to transfers, and I had lived in Mufassal towns most of my life. So Delhi was this big city, bright lights, very smart women, and I wanted to be like one of them. And LSR just telescoped that process in 3 years and made me feel so utterly confident. I did political science honors. Professor Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath was my professor, and I remember she asked me, "Are you happy in LSR?" And I said, "No, I find it quite boring." She says, "Why?" I said, "Because everybody wants to bunk class, and sit out in the lawn, and I'm used to sort of living a 1.5 length day kind of a thing." She says, "Oh, don't worry, we'll set you up on that." And she set me an assignment. She said, "I'm not going to get any marks for it." She said, "Write a term paper on Gandhi." So there was this, at that time, I was not yet 17, person going off every day to Gandhi Memorial and, Gandhi Museum and reading. A month later, I was already a different person, and that I think is when the seed for service was sort of settled in me. I come from a Sikh community which is known very well for its seva, so I can't give all credit only to that moment. But that moment made me aware that you have a choice of thinking who your work is going to impact, either not thinking or thinking who your work is going to impact. Then who would you change? Who would you work for? And Gandhi gave that mantra to me in saying, think of the poorest man, and that is your mantra. How does your work affect that? I don't think I've thought of the poorest man, but I've always thought about someone who otherwise may remain marginalized or silent. So again, I did all of this with the flow of life. Yeah. So I knew when I was in LSR, this is one thing I must mention. So when I had my study desk at home, because I never lived in the hostel, I was a day ski. So I had 3 words written on a sort of a board on top of my desk, and the three words, please don't laugh at me, but rather than sticking posters of movie stars, I thought this story is better because of the three words. I wrote road, Fulbright, and Inlac, three words. That's all in front of me. I thought I would be very focused. Friends of mine were getting roads, Inlac, uh, Fulbright, and things like that. But somewhere along the line, I got distracted. I went on to television and sort of was a bit of a pioneering person. Just for an odd thing, TV turned color from black and white at the time that I was there. And a funny story was that our makeup was all odd colors. This beautiful sari that you're wearing, Pushkala, imagine this on your eyelids. That's the kind of makeup we used to have there, because all it used to be shades of gray. And then we went color and they forgot to change the makeup. So the first day, all of us went there with these neon colors and nothing matching on our faces. And then, of course, there was a earthquake. All of us were pulled off screen. And by the next day, they had normal kind of makeup and things became better. I think it was my gift of the gab that got me on TV, but the gift of the gab also got me into ELSA in a way, because I eventually came in through the extracurricular quota. Because my father was very prone to transfers, at a critical point in my life, he was transferred, and I didn't do so well in the pre-joining ELSA exam. So I had very little options. I went with the flow. Okay, I'm not going to get what I really want to do. Let's try the quota. And Dr. Luthra was there, and I remember she interviewed me personally and said, "I'll give you pass course." I said, "No, I want honors." So she says, "ठीक है, what honors?" I said, "Either history or political science." So she said, "I'll put you in touch with the two sets of teachers." It was so embarrassing because, in the room that used to be next to the principal's office, there was this giant table, and at one end sat the history people, at the other end sat the political science people. They interviewed me together and then made me make a choice in front of everybody. So can you imagine when I said, "I'm sorry, history, but I will be able to work on you on my own, but I think I will need a little bit of hand holding for political science." And then that's how I became Meenakshi Gopinath's student and did political science. Uh, I knew I would work towards a PhD always, but I didn't know when and what. And as I started growing in my academic profile, I went to JNU for my MA. I did it in political science, but I took some optional papers from international relations. So for MPhil, I then moved to international relations and I did French foreign policy. Um, uh, it was about socialist France and European security. I talked about guns, I talked about aeroplanes and all that. So as you can see that the interests were very wide, and that is why I never knew what I was going to do my PhD on, which is really a strange thing because people are quite clear. I am a biochemist and I will do my work in this field or something. I was never clear. I still am not clear what I will be doing tomorrow. In fact, when I met my husband, he asked me, "What do you see yourself doing 10 years from now?" And I remember answering him by saying, "I don't know. I could be translating a book. I could be sort of, leading a protest, or I could be making a film." And the next day he came to see me and he brought a camera along that you don't even have a camera and you have these dreams of making a film. That's how I decided I would marry him. Well, anyway, it didn't work out. And so from the age of about 34, I have been, which is 30 odd years now, I have been a single person. I have two children and probably my best, two sons, and my best role to date has been as a mother. So in JNU, I enrolled for my first PhD, which was on international relations. But my elder son had just been born, and I remember going in for class to meet my professor with a bassinet carrying the baby. And suddenly, in the middle of it, the baby started crying. So I picked him up, put him on my leg, and started bouncing him around. And the professor said, I'm sorry, this is not how PhDs are done. I said, well, I can't wish him away. This is the only way the PhD can be done. He said, maybe you shouldn't do it just now. And I agreed with him because the child was crying and, he was on breastfeeding, and I just got very overwhelmed. That was the end of my international. I got admission in JNU International Relations, and I let that go. And the second time I thought, because now I had spent a long time in the arts, that I should do something for the arts, and I thought I'd enroll for the Rasa theory PhD. But instead, that time, the big overwhelming thing in my life, and as I told you, I go with the flow, was the divorce was going to take shape. I mean, I was going to take concrete action. I was not going to stay on there. And so that got priority. And finally, in around 2000, we saw an amazing thing happen in India. A dance form was recognized as classical. All of a sudden, out of the blue, it was like a sleepy cultural ministry waking up and recognizing the dance form of Satriya as classical. It became the eighth of the dance forms of India, classical dance forms of India. And I had a moment of epiphany, and I said, oh my God, they have done this not because of the brilliance of the dance, but because of political compulsion. You may recall that in Assam had seen terrible period of insurgency. I had a close ringside view of that because my father was posted in Assam. And so my heart beat for the Assamese people, and I was an Assam watcher even without realizing that. And I said that, this Assam Accord, which happened in 1985, and interestingly and emotively, uh, this soap opera politics of India has been going on for a while. It was on the 15th of August that Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, after Indiraji's death, signed the accord to bring in peace. It was a rushed accord, in my opinion. Oh God, I don't know. Are we allowed to say things like this? Anyway, it's the result that matters. Because I say rushed and all, and it's just amazing how they did it. They kept the state government out of it. They got the young alpha boy, I mean, not alpha, all the boys who were protesting in a conversation with Rajiv Gandhi on the 15th of August, and they passed this accord. There's an amazing book written about it. It's called The Accord Discord by Sangeeta Barua Pisharoti, the Wire editor. And she has sort of detailed very interesting things, including the fact that the boy didn't even have clothes. When they were coming to sign this accord with Rajiv Gandhi, they didn't have appropriate clothes. So they came a day earlier and went to Sarojini Nagar, bought the clothes with which they signed the accord, bearing which they signed the accord. And you have these photographs that mark that day. And anyway, in the accord, there was a section which said to meet the cultural aspirations of the people of Assam. This was 1985. Nothing happened about meeting the cultural aspirations of the people of Assam till 2000, when all of a sudden, some Babu must have found the dusty file from 1958, when for the first time the request was made for Satriya to get accorded classical status, and dusted it, put it on the table, and boom, before you knew, it had got passed, and we got the eighth classical dance style. Now, I started talking about it just as I'm talking to you with my friends, dancers from Assam. And everybody looked at me flummoxed and said, what is she talking about? And I realized that, here is an area that people are not looking at, to look at dance through a political lens. And Assam was a wonderful place to look at anything with a political lens. It's just such a politically exciting space to be in. So I wrote this PhD. I did it from IIT Delhi. Now my first Fulbright, which came at the end of 9 years of working at the India Habitat Center. At that time, Fulbright had a category called the Arts Fellow, and that's the category in which I got it. It included people who set up, ran festivals or art centers, and in that context, after running the Habitat Center as a sort of, the first person. I wrote the SOPs and all that about it. I got this chance to work at the world's largest cultural center, which was the Lincoln Center. So that was my first Fulbright. I go to the US. Lincoln Center is on Manhattan. I live bang opposite Columbia University. Now, the minute I reached there, everybody starts saying, "Oh, Arshiya's here. Let's include her in some conversation and discussion." Every time I would go there, I was all quite shocked at the distance of position between scholars and the practitioners who were very famous in India, and hence included in on the panel. And I realized that somebody needs to bridge this position, and I wondered whether uh, I could help it. And my idea to help it at that time was a journal on dance called criticality, written 30 years ago. The concept note, it's still with me, and it'll link with Sadi later. Anyway, uh, uh, I have lived my life in the strength of girl power, in the sense I have very strong women friends who have supported me and protected me. They I was missing them in New York, and I went to spend Thanksgiving, which came in the month that I had reached the USA. And I was with a friend, a professor at Minnesota, the University of Minnesota, of dance studies. Her name is Professor Ananya Chatterjee. So
Ah.
Ananya and I, we were very good friends, and she was missing girlfriendship also. And I, of course, was already in withdrawal. I mean, I thought I'll catch the first plane and go back if this is how things are going to be. Because, New York isn't the friendliest of places, but it's still the most exciting of places. Anyway, I remember walking down the Mississippi with her and telling her, I think that I want to suggest a PhD topic for one of your students. And I told her uh, about this Assam Accord and the political lens and Satriya's recognition. And she said at the end of it, it can't happen. I was shocked. I thought I had analytical powers and I was critical in my thinking and all that. So I said, "Is there something wrong? Do I have a crack in it?" She says, "No, because you are going to do it. No one else but you." I said, "Are you crazy? I'm hitting 45. I want to rest. I want to enjoy Netflix, travel, friends, lunches, and dinners." And she said, "Rubbish, I'll kick you from here. You do your PhD." And that's how it happened. She kicked me from Minnesota and I landed up at IIT Delhi to do my PhD. I had a moment where I could have stayed on, in the sense, I mean, I could have tried to strike something happening in America, but it was very interesting. By now, I'm a single mother of two children. The divorce has come through, and I go excitedly to my CA, who's a very good friend of mine, and I said, uh, "Do we have enough money for me to study overseas?" And he says, "Yes, we have enough money for one person to study overseas. You decide who that person is to be." And really, I thought that was terrible, because I naturally, as a mother, I made a decision. Oh, we'll keep the money for the boys, not me. But I was lucky I got admission in IIT Delhi. And IIT Delhi is really cutting edge in its work, even in humanities. Now, most people look very shocked and say, "Really? What a con Arshiya is. IIT mein thodi padhi hai." But padhi, because their humanities and social sciences department is quite exceptional, and it allows people like me to come in. And I had Professor Amrit Srinivasan as my guide, who,
So,
Pushkala,
Arshia,
you
I
might know
want to
him.
jump in and move you on to the
Mhm.
story of the book, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. So the book actually gets written during the COVID period because it was such a period of nothingness,
So, this
or
is your
really not
second
for me.
Fulbright, yes?
So the second Fulbright was after I wrote my PhD. I go for my second Fulbright as a postdoc scholar. There I worked. See, remember, my thesis has been written on the political influence impact on the arts. And then I have been thinking deeply and I'm saying, no, I'm not being fair. It's not the political impact alone that drives the arts. It could be economics, it could be media, it could be. And after I reached the US, I added one more category to it, and that was big cultural institutions. So I realized that the Lincoln Center, now I've had my time at Lincoln Center, I saw how they created stars out of, I mean, there were 10 people at that level of excellence globally, but they picked up one particular category of person and promoted it. I worked with programming at Lincoln Center, and I realized that they are driven by grants. So
Mm.
if you get a grant to do LGBTQIA programming, then you just do it, and you make stars out of the people you promote. So big cultural institutions with big money can make that happen. Little Habitat Center was not going to make a star out of anyone, because if I tell
Mm.
you the story of Habitat, we had no money. We just had this big fat building, and everybody assumed we were sitting on a fat pile of cash, but there was zero money. And all the trick. Have you heard that song? Where do you go to, my lovely, when you're alone in your bed? That song is my life at the Habitat, tricking, always thinking, lateral, cheating, and getting it to run, kind of a thing. But Lincoln Center, my God, the kind of budgets they would talk about, I would faint. I could not even write that number, you know, in the kind of millions they were talking about. So while I was at the Habitat, I got the experience. While I was at the Lincoln Center, I realized that I would like to do my PhD, and I did my PhD at IIT Delhi. But the two processes were still playing on in my head, and I go to Lincoln to go back to the University of Minnesota. I go to Minnesota and do this interesting work on how the cultural meme is created. I thought I'm coming back. I, even took a position at the Advanced Studies Institute in Minnesota, and then COVID hit us, and none of us could travel. And I'm just sitting there wasting my time. And I decided, chalo, let's ring up friends and touch base again. Otherwise, we're always at such a fast pace. And Bato mein, I was talking to Shama Bhate, who is a very senior Kathak dancer from Pune, and I told her about how I'm always fascinated by the work of this guy called Mohanrao Kalyanpurkar, whom I've never met. And she told me, but we did a centenary thing about him. So I said, do you have the papers? She said, yes. I said, how have you published them? She says, no, not published. I said, we are so badly lacking in material in India. We do not have enough material. We have so much dance, but we have no scholarship, very little scholarship proportionately. So we decided we would write a book. Three authors, because she said she needed one of her very brilliant students to be associated with it. Three authors, two cities, one man, 80 interviews, going through all those papers again. And we produced the book called Non Gharanedar, Pandit Mohanrao Kalyanpurkar, The Pavior of Kathak. The minute the book came out, people who interviewed me or at book launches and all would turn around and say, oh my God, first of all, what kind of a word is non gharanedar? Okay. Second, you've got a spelling mistake on the title itself. I said, what spelling mistake? I really thought, my God, am I blind? Because sometimes you really can't see the mistake right in front of your eyes. And they said, you've written P instead of S. I said, where? Savior, nahi, savior of Kathak. So, you know how it is, this feminist in me got really upset about this savior business. I said, no, he's savior because he created the pathway. Now, Mohanrao Kalyanpurkar was the guy who was getting erased in history. Nobody remembered that it was he who set the first syllabus for Kathak. Whatever we learn today, wherever we learn it, whether it's in Khairagarh or in Delhi Kathak Kendra, the syllabus followed is the one that he created. And he was the first director of the Kathak Kendra. And for me, that was a little knock on my heart because when I was 37 years old, I was invited to become the director of Kathak Kendra. But because of prevailing practices to which I was going to come very soon, and even in my conversation, I will come to very soon now, I said, no, this is going to be just a crisis. It's within 24 hours, we'll be in the newspapers for me having taken some strong positions and iconic people resisting that position. So the the Kathak Kendra directorship didn't happen, but the book happened, and it is India's first book on the arts that has a cloud attached to it. You know, one thing that Pushkala you didn't mention, which has a YP, which has a LSA connection, is that I helped set up the the Young People's Foundation,
Ah,
which
yes,
the
YP. I've got it
pioneer of
written
which,
here.
yeah, pioneer of which is Ishita Chaudhary, also an ELSA girl. So I want to say a little bit about this. Um, when Ishita was a very young girl, she was 16 years old. I think she studied in the Sri Ram school. I had been thinking about a forum from ELSA, from Habitat for young people, because I had been meeting a lot of young people who, to me, seemed not feeling confident, not feeling safe in being able to speak about their dreams or worries or anxieties or hopes. And I was realizing that we are not doing a good job in training them to take on the challenges that we are going to encounter as the centuries changed and things like that. So, especially political. I had one young man who was once with me, young boy in school, who told me, "Oh, this politician is very good looking. I'd vote for her." And I knew that, oh, no, 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 we need to do a training here and how to do it. So the YP was set up. Ishita was the one who I thought would make a good leader, and my God, what a leader she has made. She put YP on an international map. You'd be surprised to know that in Obama's Youth Advisory Council, YP has a seat, had a seat. YP speaks every year at the UN forum. I'm its chair. This is my 65th year of life, and I tell them कि अब तो invert करने से भी कोई sense नहीं होती. You know, when I was 62, I said, okay, let's pretend my age is inverted. Then a young youth organization can have a 26-year-old chair. But now, even if they invert it, I'm way too old. 56 would be too old. So YP is soon going to have a change in board, and I will leave, hopefully, 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 and they will find somebody younger and dynamic, and I can be left free to do other things. Now, uh, would you like to ask me the next question, or should I just move on to the
I think you
activity?
can move on because one of the reasons I didn't refer to YP there is when I looked through the website, it seemed to veer more towards the social side of
Yeah,
activism than the
yes,
artistic
yes.
side. So I thought,
Yes, but strangely, YP had ran a program for a long time on independent music. And some of the ideas that I now promote through Unmute on copyright, for instance, sort of started percolating into my head at that time that, how can these young people who are so infinitely talented and are creating music and taking such risks, how can they protect their cultural property? So, anyway, when COVID happened, it was a period of silence from performance. So it was almost a fright in a way, because people like us are addicted to the arts. So, but it also turned out to be the period of new seedings. So the Prime Minister said it rather aptly. What does he call it? Apda mein opportunity, afsar or whatever. So you have to find that. It's a good policy to go by. Even in the worst of circumstances, something good will happen. Some window will open. There will be a silver lining. There will be a new opportunity. There will be seedings happening at that time. So, in the silence from performance, from the field of the art, we heard different words, different narratives started coming to the forefront. And one of them, a very powerful narrative, two of them actually I must refer to. One was that the artists went on to this digital platform business and did festivals online, and suddenly the screen would go blank. And because of my position, I had been dance critic for Times of India. I'd set up the India Habitat Center. For so many years, I'd presented the national program of dance and music on television. I have very good equations with the artists. So I would ring them up and I said, hey, what happened? Has your screen gone blank? And people would give me answers, completely at sea kind of answers. They gave us a video on a MP3, MP4, yeah, wo. I said, no, 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 this is not technology. This is the copyright hit. So there was zero awareness of copyright. Second, it was a tragic situation. You know how the funding happens in the arts? The biggest funder is the government today. It gives 75% of the money outright. People
In
create
addition
new
to
words.
that, two military personnel had led to complete breakdown of its defensive and offensive capability and
Okay, I
also
think we have the television on and something being reported on the war. So I'm very sorry about that. Should I continue? Huh? Okay. So 75% is what they get, and 25% they are supposed to get later. But most people end up spending another equivalent of the 25% and at least another 25% more because they say they will retrieve it on their first set of performances. But there were no set of performances. There was no coming of that 25%, balanced 25%. And the artists were in a fix. The issue of contracts came to the forefront. Now, when you get a grant, you sign it. So the first and most important reneger was the government itself. So this was the question that was thrown up. And the third and critical thing, and that's the one that took traction maximum, was the fact that there were many allegations of sexual harassment. Many. And the numbers were astounding. One, if if you were lucky, it was only one allegation. Otherwise, 19, 121, things like that. I was writing a piece at that time on my work in Minnesota, comparing it to what happened to MF Hussein. And so I was steeped into the law part of it. And the minute these things came up during COVID when no performances were happening, I just turned around and I said, this is arts and the law. This is an area no one's going to talk about. This is an uncomfortable area. It challenges government policies, lack of it, and laxity where such policies exist. Who's going to be the one who's going to stick their neck out? I stuck my neck out and I started by creating public forums where these issues were discussed. They were a series in English first called Arts and the Law, Finest Minds, brilliant people always online. Habitat helped me on that. I'm technologically quite challenged. That's why I'm speaking to you today also from my phone because I can't figure out my laptop. I don't know what's happened. Anyway, so we did this. We started workshops. Now, the workshop story was really funny because sexual harassment in the arts, but the people are not even going to be willing to hear it. Secondly, parents who send their children very happily into the art spaces, thinking that your child's going to grow up as a artistic ambassador of our civilization and culture, did not want to be faced with this reality anymore. Gurus were in complete denial, even though they were perpetrators in many cases. So it was a totally uphill task. I was not equipped to do it on my own, and then got through a lady called Arshiya Sethi, who is a trainer, posh trainer. And between the two of us, over many months, we created a unique arts uh, posh training module.
Do you
And
just
it
want
was
to
so
expand on Posh Place and
So, prevention of
POCSO?
sexual harassment at a workplace is what it is.
Preeti is
My
smiling. She
biggest,
knows about it.
yeah. So, the first challenge was getting people to accept that a dance school or a music school or an arts classroom of any kind was a workplace. And there is this otherworldliness about the arts and a very this worldliness about law. Bridging that took a lot of time, but as stories started coming out and then it was moving with such fast speed, something happens in September, something happens in November, something happens in December. With that speed, sexual harassment allegations were coming forth in the field of the arts. And the arts are like, they think that they're about gods and things like that, and about the higher reaches of civilization and your mind and all that. And that law and all this is not so much. So, Preeti, I've seen that you've raised your hand and I would like to make this interactive. So, it's okay, Pushkala. I hope that I can
Of
take this
course, of
question from
course.
Preeti. Yeah.
Sorry, Arshiya, it's very interesting to hear all of this. Because I'm a lawyer, I am obviously very interested in what you just said. Some of the challenges of actually creating the environment, the art environment, and qualifying it as a workplace and to apply the law to that, that must have been fraught with its own set of challenges because, the challenge with POSH is the lack of implementation. You know, even in companies. So just can you just say a couple of words about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, if my first training that I did, I said, I'm not stepping into the wide world of artists without getting the gurus on my side. So I offered the first training, which are called GASH, Gurus Against Sexual Harassment, and 40 people enrolled. 39 were women gurus, mostly my friends, or those people who have faith that I'm doing something interesting. So maybe we don't understand it right now, but let's see what she is talking about. So they were my regulars. And then I had one guru who uh, was gay. I really still had not reached into the community that I needed to carry with me. They still resist me. I have tried every possible method of speaking directly. Okay. Anyway, institutionally, there was these gurus, 40 people were with me, and with that confidence, I moved into mainstream action, began conducting workshops and writing extensively. Anita Ratnam on Nartaki gave me this clean slate, write what you want because it's much needed and we can't. So we were all worried that there will be an intergenerational break in the arts and then we will lose the brilliance of our arts. For in the interest of the arts, we're not doing this to shame the arts or shame the gurus. In fact, I always spend a lot of time trying to tell institutions that please have it in place because that's the best way in which you can contain the practice and contain the scandal that can follow, kind of a thing, and your reputation would fall. But everybody talked about, "Well, we are gyan dan," and these kind of words would come up and all that. And I'd say, no, no, you have nine people, you have visiting people, you have people who get salaries. So you're a workplace. Stop, take out all this goodiness, and realize that you're a workplace. Then it was the nature of training and teaching, the Guru Shishya Parampara. If every day you're coming in and touching your Guru's feet, you are being told, zip up, don't ask any questions. How do you create an environment where it's okay to ask the question and it is not insulting? So we've done workshops with students, agitated ones, to teach them how to ask the question. Just as Posh mandates that you train even the IC to, write a report, to interview dispassionately, to investigate uh, intensely, but without making stigma kind of things. So even how to write a complaint is one of the things we do in our trainings. But my God, it is unending the kind of situations. So I call the work that we were doing arts and the law. I did not say we are working in sexual harassment in the arts. They would have booted me out completely. But there was quite a resistance from government institutions, which I found very strange because this is a statutory law and it should be followed. And really, government should not be giving grants or apportioning money for an institution that does not give an affidavit that other compliances, not just your fiduciary compliances, but other compliances have also been put into place. So if any guru at an institution is found to be at fault, then action needs to be taken. But no, in very few institutions even had the basic announcement that we have zero tolerance. Should you have any complaint, this is who you have to get to. For instance, and I still cite it because Katha Kendra was one of the centers where a case came up. It was a government institution. They did not even have that little board. They did not have an IC in place. All of this gets formed overnight after one of their Gurus has been hauled off to the jail. All of this gets formed. And you know how people want to have compliant IC members. I could see that that's the process that's happening. But I felt that if I kept like a woodpecker, and I really call my life now the woodpecker life because I go on tuck, 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 maybe there will be a difference. Maybe. So the thing is that today I am not alone. 5 years ago, I was one single voice, you know at age 37, I was a voice that was, they couldn't even figure out what I was saying. I had to speak in code, hoping that they would understand. But today, I have so many artists talking about it. There is a buzz on social media amongst art schools and dance schools and younger artists, particularly on this issue. But I want to salute some of the seniors who spoke up fearlessly. There's the case of this great singer and actress Neela Bhagwat. She is now an octogenarian. She's in the ninth decade of her life. And she spoke up. The troll army hit her, and everything. But she spoke up then, she spoke up now. But when she speaks, we realize that we lost a great artist in dance because we kept our eyes shut at that time. So now at least there is a little more consciousness, there is a little more awareness. I recognize that this is a difficult subject to speak on. You When we do our sessions, it's not possible that you are free to listen. You may not want to be able to speak at that time. So we created a website. We, as in, it's a loose configuration of three NGOs working in the arts: Free Foundation, Arts Forward, which has the next generation, a generation younger than me, and Shruti Performing Troupe, the representative of which is yet another generation. So this is intra-generation. This is the first time in my life that I've been sensible that mm, I get out, there is somebody, leadership already in place. She gets out, there's leadership in place. Now, the last of our youngest of them all, Somaba Bandopadhyay, is both a Manipuri dancer, Dr. Somaba Bandopadhyay, and a professor of law. So strange,
Wow.
but last night, Pushkala, one of the reasons why I'm looking such a mess is because I didn't realize what the time was. I was writing a piece on copyright. We've had two very big cases, including one that has an ELSA girl involved in it, Anita Dubey, the copyright issues that have happened. And yet, yesterday, some dancer from India rang me up and said, "Oh, then I'll just pick up this from YouTube." And I was like, "Oh my God, no, 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 we have
So,
to start writing
Arshiya,
again."
I was going to raise a couple of questions. One
Okay.
was, the field of film music. There, they've been talking about music composers' copyright for quite a few decades now. Is there any overlap between you and the practice of the celluloid world at all? That was one question. The other area I wanted to ask you about was that when teachers are contracted by institutions, is there a charter of what behavior can be expected from the teachers? Likewise, when students are admitted, are they given an accompanying document which says these are the things you can expect to get? For instance, attendance by the teacher at all the classes that are committed to a basic contract on that level, but also as to whether there is a route for legitimate complaint when it occurs.
So there are two distinct questions. I'll just tell you. So the piece that I'm writing also looks at the Wasifuddin A.R. Rahman issue, with Veera Raja Veera from PS2 being the
Mm.
same composition and Adana notation identical to Shiva Stuti that the Daga brothers used to sing. Shiva,
Yes.
Shiva, Shiva,
Right.
that
Has
one.
that come out?
Yes, so it's so interesting. The judge is Pratibha Singh, Justice Pratibha Singh, master of IPR, master of IPR. We did a conference, unmute, all three of us, and the eldest. I mean, Cree Foundation is the senior most organization, so we take on quite a bit. But we did a session on copyright, a conference. Uh, she was our keynote speaker. She's brilliant. Absolutely. She was the judge who pronounces on um, Wasif's and Rahman's case. She has demanded 2 crore rupees to be kept in the registry of the High Court of Delhi. Of course, the matter will go up because Rahman's not going to accept it. But that is the mistake. I think that not accepting that there could have been an error in your ethical compliances or ethical thought is is also wrong. Many mistakes. I believe that Anita Dubey's mistake happened without realizing. She was just so bhavuk about that poem, Sab Yaad Rakha Jayega. You know, that poem, Sab Yaad Rakha Jayega, when the CA protest, anti-CA protests were going on. And this young boy from Jamia, his name is uh, Aziz, Amir Aziz. He wrote that poem, Sab Yaad Rakha Jayega. And she used it in her artwork, and she used it extensively in her artwork. She did not give credit. I think there was a momentary lapse of judgment. It is human to err. So instead of going into denial, I feel that copyright is easy to handle in a way that you have to give credit, you have to take permission, you have to do profit sharing. Clear pathway आपके पास है, आप क्यों नहीं करते? But well, uh, so this is one thing. We try and suggest in the field of the identity arts, like classical dance and music institutions, some of the progressive attitude that has been taken on by by the film industry. Asya introduced me to the idea that every film, when it is set, creates an IC. And every time that film goes for an outdoor shooting, at least one of the IC members goes with them. So sometimes she sends me messages, here I am in Dalhousie, and I'm the IC member, and things like that. And I said, oh my God, but we also have these moving shows. I'm not talking about jatras. I would like to get to the jatra point also. But we have festivals that come up like pop ups. They're there for a little while and then they go away. So why can't we have ICs for festivals? So I'm now working with festival directors also, requesting them, persuading them, arguing that they should have these ICs in place. After all, let's take the case of the Serendipity Festival. So many venues, who is in charge? Do they understand that the green room is serendipity? That, you know, um, pathways, audiences, bathrooms, all of that becomes serendipity. An act happening in any one of them becomes the responsibility of serendipity. So, this is, we are learning from each other. We are still at an early stage on that aspect. Teachers and charters, you know how hard it has been. It is the getting teachers to sign, getting teachers to understand, attend training workshops, to get students to realize that they can speak in a respectable manner with everybody and raise their concerns, to have a safe space within the safe space that we are hoping to make the art centers a reality. We recommend all of this. But right now we have a situation where um, where Katha Kendra, after this terrible incident, actually put up a little placard saying we have zero tolerance. Good. But they said if you give an anonymous complaint, it will not be honored. It will not be looked into. But they did not give the IC names, emails, numbers, which they're mandated to give. So I took a picture and sent it immediately to the director. I said, "Kya kar rahe hain aap? Anonymity from your side is okay, but anonymity from the student side is not okay." So people have to realize. And I think leadership has a very important role in it. And I mean, right from the top. So it was very unfortunate that when this crisis with 121 complaints, 121, that's 121 way too many, at Kalakshetra was happening, we had the wrestler girls on protest on the streets of Delhi. How could we give the dancers any confidence that their problem is going to be addressed? Eventually, the reason that Kalakshetra got addressed was federal politics. which brings us back, because you know that the party in the center is not the party in the state. So as part of their different postures, Kalakshetra starts getting addressed, and there's a little pressure on it, and things start moving there. Which brings me back to the thing that my PhD was about, looking at dance through the lens of politics. See, it's there all the time. We can keep denying it and talking about higher purposes of the arts, but I'm afraid it's just a very refined language, but that has to play and be learned and heard and practiced in this worldly situation of unethical practices. Okay, did I answer?
So now we need to ask if there are any other questions. Thank you, Arshiya, for that.
My pleasure.
Because we have come to the end of the hour. And
Yes.
right at the beginning, I could have told the company here that this session was by no means going to touch even the tip of the iceberg, because there is so much more that you've done and so much more that can be shared, because it's pioneering and would definitely inspire everybody, but particularly younger people who are looking to see whether there are set careers that they could go into. I mean, the very fact that you've created so many avenues in which other people are then going on and taking roles to take the work forward, I think that's an area of great growth. And it's something that we need to celebrate as a unique contribution to everybody's endeavor that we want to make the world a better place. And particularly with the arts, when there are opportunities for those who, in a way, are slightly different from those who want to qualify as doctors and engineers or lawyers and follow a predicted path. Having said that, I'm sure there are, path-breaking people in those other disciplines too. So I just want to throw it open to any questions to Arshiya, knowing that we didn't cover one aspect of her work, which was how she has these mad ideas and inspires dancers to come up with something that's often not based on mythology, not based on the traditional pieces that you've learned, but enable you to think. But maybe that's for another day. Let's wait and see what the
day.
floor.
But ELSA has produced so many artists. It's just amazing. I mean, it's really amazing how it has sharp minds. There are leaders everywhere, and that ELSA has produced so many artists is truly unique, you know. So, are there any questions? Yeah, are there any birders here? Birders, bird watching.
Ah, yes, that was your hobby. Yes.
Yeah, but that hobby got me to do something quite amazing, you know. So I went birding one day in the Sultanpur area and its environs. There is a village called Basai, which was getting more water than Sultanpur. Look at the policies and the priority of the policies. So the birds were coming there, and it was there that, coming back from Sultanpur, somewhat disappointed with the less birds, we did a detour to Basai and saw 400 bar-headed geese. They rose together, they turned, they swerved, they swooped. And I was watching this choreography against the sky and saying, where are the dancers? Where are the dancers? And eventually that evening I came back and I rang up Rama Vaidyanathan, who is a very good friend of mine and a trustee on Cree Foundation. And I told her this story about how I missed her at the bird uh, watching thing this morning. And for this reason, and we decided to create a piece around birds. It is an activism around birds. And so we have a full traditional Bharatanatyam Margam from Alaripu to Tillana, but the talking in it is about birds, you know, in a very relaxed, friendly sort of manner. Why the peacock becomes a national bird. What happened to the bird that didn't become the national bird? You know which one it is? It's the great Indian bustard. And that is why it is in critical endangered levels, because had it become the national bird, we would have looked after it better, you know, kind of a thing. and migrations and the miracle and magic of migrations. I mean, the enormous lengths the tiny bird travels and the need for water bodies and familiar landscapes so that they can rest in between and all that, the criticality. It's a piece that made me very proud. Another piece that made me very proud that we were able to do was something on Muslim personal law. It looked at triple talaq, khulla, and iddat through Kathak dance. Rani Khanam, the celebrated Kathak dancer, came to me and said she wanted to work on this, but she was too scared and wanted me to be the dal in front of her. So I said yes, but of course it meant a lot of research and reading and all that. And then the date we got for showing it was in the middle of Ramadan. And even I panicked and I got a dal for myself in Saida Hamid. And we did the program, and I really a program that has evoked a lot of academic interest as well. So yes, it is true that I love working on unusual subjects. Let's see what comes up next now. Okay.
So I see. Dimple. Dimple, did you have a question?
No, I just wanted to say hello to Arshiya.
Lovely to
It's
see
Hi.
not.
you.
Hi, how are you, Arshiya? I think I'd love to catch up with you one on one sometime.
Sure.
Plenty of questions to ask, and this has been an opportunity to learn so much more about you. We met briefly once, and it was. I'm grateful that I had your number, you had mine, and you pinged me once again, and
Yes.
I'd love to really catch up. And I just
Sure.
wanted to say
I'm
it's
in.
it's fascinating all of
Thank
what you've
you.
done, and
Thank you. So Dimple, I'm in Canada right now. Keeping that in mind, give me a call anytime on my WhatsApp number. You have it. I pinged you on that. Anna?
yes, certainly,
Yeah.
certainly.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Can I just share my email? It's Arshiya Sethi. The way you see my name written there as one word,
Mhm.
Arshiya Sethi at gmail.com. If any of you have ideas, if any of you would like to help or have a definite plan or a concern, please feel free to share it with me. I would love to work collaboratively. That's one thing I didn't mention.
Yes,
We
I
need
would love to
deep
talk to you another time,
collaboration.
Arshiya, because here working in the UK, we get given a few documents that we have to look at when we fill forms for projects. And
Hmm. I would like to look at those documents to see how we can
okay.
adapt it to
Equal
India.
opportunities issues, fair
Yeah,
practice issues,
yeah,
things like this are all issues that you have to think about and you have to commit yourself to before you even apply for a grant.
yeah.
So
But it
I'm
doesn't happen
wondering
like
whether
this
we
in
could bring
India.
in some kind of statute in the Indian system. Years ago, I remember speaking to Dr. Kapila Vatsyayan. At that
Yeah.
time, she said, we don't have a cultural policy, don't even talk about these things.
We still don't have a cultural policy,
Mm.
by the way. I
Mm.
sometimes think that that's good. We don't have a cultural policy. It leaves us with possibilities of forcing things in. But at the rate things are going right now, with whims, impulsive ideologies, personal concerns taking forefront in the arts, I really wonder whether we should have had the safety of a cultural policy. But
Well,
definitely, I think
we have to keep trying and hope that one day it falls in place, whether we are around to see that or not.
even if they don't have a cultural policy, they can certainly have ethical principles in place, which is what I find these compromises really upset me. And so, despite the offer of 19 or when I was 37 and I refused, I still don't want to be part of any government organization because I know that we are not going to be. I am more useful outside as the maverick rather than inside as the institution builder.
So I think we are coming to a natural end. Preeti says she has to leave. So, Preeti,
Yes.
I don't know if you want to address the group as a chair for a minute before you go.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was, thank you, Pushkala. Thank you very much, Arshiya. I was actually taking notes. Maybe it's the lawyer in me that does this, but I was actually taking notes and writing out things. it's very interesting. The only thing that I want to say, and maybe I'll send you that separately, a very good friend of mine in New York, who's also a lawyer, actually does an art law podcast. Okay. And so, I'll send you that link. But I think, just the wide range of things that you were talking about, it was, it's such a wide canvas, and it is so interesting to hear all these things, particularly for people like us. We are doing really sort of same kind of thing, boring stuff. And it is, I've always had the greatest admiration for those who've actually got a skill set and, have that knack to be able to use art and as a form of expression. I'm always very envious. And, same goes for Pushkala as well. Just kind of seeing the kind of things um, you're able to do. So really, I think Pushkala is right. This is the tip of the iceberg. Maybe when you are back in India, some of us can get together and see what are some of the other areas where it might be worthwhile to do something collaborative as well. Really, I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Preeti, for your kind words. I feel that I would really wait for that podcast link to come my way.
It's a
We
deal.
have set up this website called unmute.help, which
Yeah,
is a one window, legalese made simple, uh, kind of rights and responsibilities of artists and arts leaders.
yeah,
Since you are in law, it's not going to be so frightening for you, but for some people, even this is frightening. However, we are always thinking of ways of simplifying it.
yeah.
Podcast sounds like a good idea. Let me hear it and see if we have the capacity to deliver that. I'd be happy to do that. But one thing that we can do, maybe as a group, we can all request the ELSA cultural societies, whether it's the Hive, I don't know whether it's still called that, or Dance Society or Music Society, to sort of begin being aware. Let us imprint uh, the law and the ethical aspects of law and the arts into the mind of the young Elsas. That's those many more voices who will speak and multiply and amplify the need to be this. I really think, like Anita Dubé's, is just a lapse of judgment, but it had to be handled in a manner where you were not denying it and saying, so what, and things like that. No. So we can do that. We can definitely make sure that nothing like this happens again.
Right.
Okay. So thank you very much, ladies. You've
Thank
given
you
me
all.
so much importance. I really feel very grateful. I feel energized and ready to go. And please don't bother waiting for me to come back to India. Just drop me a